E rere kau mai te awa nui mai te kāui maunga ki Tangaroa, ko Au Te Awa ko Te Awa koa. So the great river flows from the mountains to the sea. I am the river and the river is me. Every time you go on the river, each trip is unique. It's like you're walking into the eternal present. Yeah, to the space of the eternal present. What do I mean by that? It's a place where it's timeless and you can commune with your tupuna of yesterday as if they were still there. And it has all that ambience around it, and you're never alone on the river. It has its own resonance, it has its own song. The river sings, every ripo is a different tune, and it just, when you're on it and you're flowing with it, you just become one with the river, really.
In the early days, we took everything for granted. We swam in the river, we got tuna, we got inanga. It was part of our life. It was something that, as I said, we took it for granted. It's going to be there tomorrow. Things are not going to change too much. When I came back, time had changed. People had changed. The well-being of the river had changed. The whole concept had changed, and it didn't agree with principle Māori at all. It actually more bastardised us. So there had to be a stand.
For us, that battle, whether it be over the lands, whether it be opposing colonial intrusion throughout the century, it was always about the river. Yeah, the river was what leads us back.
In 2017, law was passed that accorded the river the status of an ancestor. My ancestor, your ancestor, our ancestor. This was the first time that an Indigenous law system was recognised in this country as the salient law system that applies to this river. The struggle by our old people to have the river recognised for all that it is has been a long one. It stems from the first interactions. If the first missionaries, traders, settlers had thought to understand the innate relationship of Indigenous peoples with their environment, instead of foisting their particular viewpoints on that Indigenous community, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. We wouldn't need to. And then, of course, in 1840, the Treaty of Waitangi was signed. In May, it was signed in Waitangi. That led to disputes over many, many years regarding rights to access lands, fishing rights, the right to maintain the river in its natural state. Right up to the 2000s, when we were opposing resource consents for the Tongariro Power Scheme, other resource consents for other activities in the river. We were told, we can't deal with your spiritual and emotional relationship for this river. We can only deal in the tangibles. And so all of these actions undermined the way of life. They stopped our people being who they are. They said that, those actions said that the way in which you live is not a valid and relevant way in which to live. The way you relate to this river is not a relevant and valid way to relate to this river. Our
people are continuously in court, and it's constant. It's a constant resistance, it's a constant engagement in Crown processes. And usually, do you know a veil? And so, but all you get is this resilience of resistance. Yeah, we talk about it in the sense of it being, when you're in a state of balance, you're in a state of morito. When it's disrupted by external forces, you're in a state of morirere. And I think for 150 years, the practices of the Crown have kept us in a state of morirere, flustered, of not being grounded, of not being able to take root somewhere, simply from being dispossessed of our lands. For my generation growing up, it's like, we were born to fight for the river. For us, it's never been about ownership. It's about fighting for our relationship that we've had with our river since time memorial.
E hala I te mea e tau au a Onganui ki tēnei tua uatanga. It's not as if Onganui is the only one that holds an association with the river in the way we do. Our particular rights and focus under the Treaty of Waitangi has been our river, but all Māori share it. The ability to recognise ourselves as part of the natural landscape, as part of nature. And that's why it's easy for us to say, Au Te Awa, Au Te Awa Koau. I am the river and the river is me. That is as natural as saying this child is mine and I am that child. Or this grandparent is mine and I am that grandparent. We come from one another, we relate to one another.
For more than 150 years, the iwi have been unwavering in their efforts to have their interests recognised and the health and well-being of the river protected. We now have an arrangement which will be an enduring arrangement and is the start of something very, very special. I commend the bill of the House.
The Whanganui River case is regarded as one of the longest running in New Zealand's history. What the Te Awa Tupua Act has done now is establish the correct framework within which human rights can exist. And that framework is one that recognises Te Awa Tupua, or the river, as a living and indivisible entity from its source to the sea. And that all its elements, both physical and metaphysical, make up this river. We've now established that the river is both physical and spiritual at law, so that at no turn can anyone say that a spiritual or emotional attachment to the river isn't a relevant consideration. And by the way, tauiwi, Pākehā have spiritual and emotional attachments to this land and to the river now.
I believe that it's one of the greatest things that happened in Whanganui history.
When that legislation was passed in 2017, for a fleeting moment, felt relief that the efforts of all the old people have been satisfied, that we've legislated for the wairua, for spirituality. But then, of course, I knew that we had a lot of work ahead of us.
And I suppose in the jubilation of signing Te Awa Tupua Act, there was a deeper sense of sadness as well. Yeah, so on that day, people, as much as they were crying out of jubilation, they were crying out of a sense of loss in terms of the price, the ultimate price paid to get us to that sign-off.
I think the biggest price has been the mental slavery to a system and to viewpoints that weren't ours. And for us as Onganui, it's always been through our river. Our lands are important, our mountains as well. But the river has been the central point at which our life was reasonably uniquely undermined. It was our raupatu, our confiscation. Because you disassociate us from our river, and then you've beaten us.
And it's probably about being marginalised as probably an interest group on the side for this many years without being truly recognised in terms of our mana whenua and tangata whenua status, and that our relationship with our river is far beyond, you know, any economic reasoning or exploitation. I suppose 9 out of 10 people that come up and engage and want to know about Te Awa Tupua, the kind of rhetoric they come up with is, can we sue you? You know, and that's where their thinking's at when they think about a legal entity.
Legal personality means that under the Westminster legal system, there is a status at law to carry what we know, what we understand a river is. Now, it's the closest approximation we can find in the law to support our viewpoint. And the second thing it then goes on to recognise is that it's a legal person. And much has been made about this legal personhood. Oh yes, the river's a legal person. That must be a great achievement for you as a people. And we say, well, that doesn't belong to us. It was imported here, legal personality. Te Awa Tupua, Tupua Te Kawa, the innate values of Te Awa Tupua belong to us. And it's that which is enshrined in law now, and it's that we are sharing with the river's communities and the nation.
The real significance of Te Awa Tupua settlement is that it sets a precedent. Since the passing of that legislation, the interest nationally and internationally has been huge, to the point of, you know, it's a bit like a tsunami. We've been drowned in it.
Te Awa Tupua really speaks of the connection of the veins and all of the different tributaries within one's body. They come together and form the whole. And it's like a human body. If you were to dismember my body, I wouldn't function.
The river's in a state of imbalance. Yeah. So it means that it is mawiwi, it has symptoms of being sick. One of the ways I defined it in front of the Environmental Commission was, imagine the river's your grandmother, you know, and Nana lives with you in your flat, and every day a doctor called Genesis comes around and pokes a syringe and just drains 2 litres of her blood and takes off, but does it daily. Your grandmother's going to get sick. And there are natural indicators in terms of the state of the river, kakahi, whether, you know, the abundance of kakahi as a water filter of the freshwater mussel. Yeah. The lack of native species used to be about 16 to 18 native species of fish in the river. There's probably now only 4. Yeah. So it's just the changing of the environment.
And that river, early in the piece, was being used as a dump. And today, we're trying to patch up something that should never ever happen back in the past. It should never ever have happened.
But my vision is that people will take ownership for this catchment. They'll recognise that, of course, as all people who own land and have lived with an area for all generations, that they have an emotional attachment. And that's a very, very strong driver to change. And are encouraged to make the necessary changes to the way in which they interact with that land to ensure that the streams, rivers and the land itself are sustained going forward.
So the river and the people, yeah, they are one. And then if the river is healthy, the people are healthy. And so that's been probably one of the key drives in terms of the whole